G'day everybody, Mitch here again with the Ford Model T. So in this video we're going to be looking at the cooling system again. Something rather unusual is happening here. So basically what's happening is while I'm going along, once the engine warms up, there's actually water coming out of the radiator cap. Now I've got a pretty good idea what the problem is, but we're going to have a close look in detail to give you guys an idea what's going on as well. So let's get into the video. Okay, so as you can see there's some splattering of rusty water on the bonnet there, and it's run down the side, and it's also, I don't know if you can quite see it there, but it's also running down the front of the radiator as well. So let's get this radiator cap off and have a look inside and see what's going on. I'll just get some gloves on because this engine is still quite hot. Okay, now I realise welding gloves are slightly overkill, but it's the only ones I could find, but at least I'm not going to get burnt. So we'll take the radiator cap off. Can't see anything obvious in the top, but I'm thinking it might be this expansion tube inside the filler neck that might be blocked. So what we'll do is I'll get a container of water and pour that down there and see if anything comes out of the other end at the bottom. So we'll have a look at that. Okay, so we're just putting a little bit of water through. Okay, so you can see what I've done here. I've taken the bonnet off and I've been forcing some water through here, and it is actually coming out of the it's coming out of the expansion pipe here. So what that's telling me, I reckon, is that the radiator itself might be blocked. So I think what we'll do is we'll take the bottom hose off, we'll drain everything out, and then we'll go from there. I think that's quite a simple fix, but it looks to me like a blocked radiator. So we'll just let this cool down for a bit, and then I'll take the bottom hose off. We'll drain the water out, and then we'll see what's happening inside the radiator. Doesn't look to be that serious though. Okay, so what I've done is I've sprayed some cold water over the radiator to cool it down. So now I can undo the bottom hose without risking burning myself. Now you're probably asking me, well, why don't you just open the little tap right down there at the bottom? I could do that, but I'll be waiting quite a while for the water to drain off. So what we'll do is we'll undo the clamps on that bottom hose there, and we'll let all the water out of the system that way, and then we'll proceed to giving the radiator itself a good flush. Okay, let's get these undone. Take the undo those. Alright, we might have to take the top one off yet, I'm not sure. We'll just see how cooperative it is. Okay, so I'll just undo these all the way. And we should get that clamp off. This one's holding on quite well. There we go, it's loosened it. Right. This has been on here a while, so it's attached itself onto the hose. There we go, that's one. I'll try and get the bottom one off, which has done much the same thing. It's sort of adhered itself to the hose itself. Yes, they hold on quite well. Ow, gee, everything's hot. Come on. Okay, still a bit tight. There we go. Now to get the hose off. Okay, so what I've had to do is end up having to undo the top hose as well. Just make things easier. So now I should be able to slide this hose down. Eventually. Oh, there's the water. Yeah. Nice and brown too. Yep. Okay. Well, now we should be able to remove this pipe entirely. There we go. There's a bit of crap in here. Yeah. There's a bit of stuff in there, so it looks like we're probably looking at a blocked radiator, I reckon. Yuck. Oh, see if I can get that on camera. I don't know if you can quite see that. Quite hard to get it on camera there, hang on. You can probably see that there's some rubbish inside that pipe. There you go, you can just about see it. Okay, so I've just put the camera in the shade because it is quite hot here today. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to flush out the radiator and see what comes out at the other end. And flush out the block too. Yeah, a lot of garbage coming out. Well, that's starting to look better. Let's bring the camera over to show you. And actually you can probably already see all the rusty water that's running out around here. And what I've done, because I've taken the water pipe off here, I've been able to force water straight into the radiator, which it was coming out of the bottom, so it wasn't totally blocked, but at the same time it wasn't very happy either. So what I might do is relocate the camera here so you can see just what's happening. Okay, so I've just increased the water pressure. Now we'll pop the hose on top of the radiator and give it a good flush. So what this is doing is this is flushing out the engine block and the radiator all in one go. And what I can do, if I reach over here, try and hold the hose in one place as well, if I block off the engine one, it'll force it to come out of the radiator. So this is now filling the radiator up. And you should be able to see the, there you go. So this is now forcing all of the water to come out of the radiator. I just saw some solid lumps coming out the bottom there. That's not looking good. I'd say probably metal fragments from inside the engine. After all, this engine is nearly 100 years old. In fact, in June of this year, June 2024, this car is 100 years old. So she's doing pretty well, I reckon. All right, now let's let it flush the block. There she goes. We'll just block off the radiator and we'll flush out the engine. There we go. Looking good. I think the last time I actually did a cooling system flush on this car was, it must be about 5 or 6 years ago when I did the when I replaced the radiator on it. So for that time span, it's actually, I think it's done pretty well. Yeah, I'm just looking at some of the crap that's coming out of it. It looks as though it's just part of that replacement water pipe that I put in has started to corrode on the inside, and that corrosion was getting into the engine, and, or rather into the radiator I should say, and blocking it up. So, but I should say though, even though Liz was actually shooting water out of her radiator cap, she wasn't overheating, so things weren't that bad, fortunately. Alright, what I might do now is just turn the water off, and I'll show you some of the bits and pieces that came out. So let's turn this hose. Okay, so it turns out the water pipe that I bought, this one here, yes, I'm going to have to give it a good clean on the inside. That's all cruddy in there, but it seems that this was part of the culprit as well. This pipe is actually painted, and it looks like what's happened obviously is the paint has come off on the inside of the pipe and has started causing blockages. So good job we spotted it, but it's also a good opportunity to flush out the cooling system to make sure everything stays good. Make sure keep it blockage free so that the radiator can do its job and keep this 100-year-old engine running smoothly. So we're going to give the inside of that pipe a clean, scrub it out, and then we can start putting things back together again. Okay, so what you can see what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've given this tube a thorough clean, basically bunched up some rags really tight, pushed them into the pipe and then rammed them down with a steel tube, or a steel rod rather, and got rid of all the crud that was clinging to the sides of the tube. There was a mixture of paint and obviously corroded metal and what have you, so not the kind of things that you want to see in your cooling system. Anyway, they're all cleaned out, so we can now go and put this back on the engine and refill with water, and then we'll restart the engine and we'll see how she goes from there. Okay, so as I mentioned, now this job's done. What's left to do now is to actually go ahead and put everything back together, starting with a couple of these hose clamps. Now, I probably didn't actually need to remove them completely from the bottom hose, but that's okay. Now, I always, when I install these, I set them up so that the screw heads for the clamps obviously are facing the side of the engine bay, so they're nice and easy to get to with a screwdriver. And make sure we get it in about the same place as it was before I undid it, which is quite easy to see because there's indentations in the hose from where it was done up before. Okay, it's all done. Now the beautiful thing about these hoses is I can just slide the hose back right onto the tube like so. It makes it so much easier to put things back together. Now all I need to do, hang on, getting ahead of myself here. I should probably put these hose clamps on the pipe ready. Don't have to worry about the top one so much just yet, but certainly the bottom one. I'll just feed that into there and go in fairly deep with that. Now grab the other hose clamps. Ooh, I should have put a blanket over these mudguards. They're getting rather hot in the sun. I think it's about 35 or 36 degrees Celsius today, so not sure what that is in Fahrenheit. I'll have to put that on the screen for you, but it's quite hot today anyway, and quite humid as well, so yeah, it's not fun working out in the full sun. But this was the nearest point I had to this particular, oops, my microphone here. This was the nearest point I had to the hose that I'm using, so let's put these, slide these clamps in. There's one, making sure to put them on around the right way. Now we can slide the remaining clamps into place and do those up. Now I'm going to have to cut the camera for now because it is in full sun and the camera is getting rather hot, so I'll pause for a moment and then I'll come back when we've got these hose clamps on. Okay, so the job now everything's all done up and tight. Now we're going to put some water in the radiator and make sure that there's no leaks, and then we'll take her for a drive to make sure that she's not spraying water everywhere. Now I've got to hold my finger over the expansion pipe at the bottom here because it's spraying water out at the bottom, of course, because the expansion pipe actually comes up. Oops, there we go. The expansion pipe actually comes right up into the filler neck of the radiator, so that looks full to me. I'm just checking the water pipe connections with the top and the bottom hoses, or rather the top and the bottom of the side pipe here, to make sure that they're not leaking. And I can't see anything obvious there. I can't see any drips, which is good. And I don't think that'll hold any more water. I think that's about full. Okay, the radiator is now completely full, so we can turn this hose off. Okay, now let's start the engine and make sure everything's all good. We've got a nice full radiator there. Yep, nice and full. We better put the cap back on. Okay. Make sure we get it on straight. That actually should start up. There we go. Okay, so now we've done the cooling system flush. We'll let the engine warm up now and we'll double and triple check, make sure there's no water leaks. Okay, now obviously we're not too worried about the occasional drips coming from underneath when we were flushing out the system, so I did see a couple of drips there, but that's only from where I was letting the water out. I think what we'll do now is we'll put the hood back on and we'll take Liz for a bit of a drive, get the engine warmed up again, and we'll see how she goes. Okay, so here we are back in the shed. So I put everything back together after doing the radiator flush, and that all went nicely. And as you saw, some of those bits of crud and stuff came out of the pipe work, which is always good to not have that stuff in your cooling system. So that part's all good. Now the thing is, the Model T was designed and built to be a simple car. That was Henry Ford's vision. He wanted to create a car for the masses, and to do that it had to be simple and reliable, and the key to what I'm about to tell you is the simplicity part of it. So the cooling system, as we know, is a simple thermosiphon cooling system. So it relies on the water boiling in the engine, and then as water boils it expands and it seeks higher ground, which in this case is the top of the radiator. It flows through the radiator, gets cooled, recondenses and recirculates back into the engine. Pretty straightforward. And I was thinking, oh yeah, pretty straightforward. Yeah, there's water coming out of the top of the radiator. Maybe there's a blockage in there somewhere because the water's not circulating properly. But me being an overthinker, couldn't stop there, could I? No, I had to go and pull half of the cooling system apart, flush it out. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but after all that, it turned out that those few bits of rubbish in the cooling system weren't the problem at all. And if I'd have stopped and thought for 5 seconds, I would have actually realised that, because those bits of rubbish were in the side pipe on the engine, not up in the header tank of the radiator. So that leads me to my conclusion here, which is the fact that, and you can actually see them if you look quite closely, is that the seals have actually failed on the radiator cap, which I should have checked first, but I didn't. But so even though I've had this car for, what is it now, this will be 13 years this year, I'm still learning about it. So there you go. sometimes, and more often than not with a Model T, that any problems that you have with them, they're going to be really simple, and that definitely was the case here. Blown seals in the radiator cap, so rather than the water going out through the expansion pipe like it normally did, I thought that was blocked. It wasn't. So the water is going to take the easiest path out, which was actually through the threads and through the seal on the motor meter here. So enough rambling from me. I've got to get some new seals for that when it cools down, and then it won't be leaking water anymore. So, ouch, that's hot. So that's all from me for this video. Once again, I hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and comment and smash that subscribe button. Helps keep this channel alive and gives me the motivation to do more videos for you guys. So, as always, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.